Hey guys, welcome back to EOK TV. I'm delighted to have Enzo Villani with us, Head of International Strategy at OKEx. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? Thank you.
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, we're here at Delta Summit, the second Delta Summit here in Malta. Obviously, OKEx was a major sponsor of the Malta Tech Week. So yeah, how have you found it so far?
It's a great event. I think Malta's done a lot of good things to kind of set the template for the laws and actually jurisdictional laws of becoming an exchange and helping the blockchain marketplace really advance its cause. So, and the summit's been really influential. You know, it's a great summit because it brings together a lot of the key players across the globe, not just in Malta, not just the EU, but everywhere else.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. So, I believe you had a talk earlier at this conference. Do you want to let us know a little bit more about what you spoke about?
Yeah, so I have a background in exchanges. I've been around, I worked at NASDAQ for about 7 years full-time as the MD of strategy. And then I actually consulted them prior to that when they were the NASD, which was the regulator, and for about 4 years. So, and that was through the 90s to the 2000s. And a lot of the things that happened then when the exchanges became kind of deregulated and separated from the regulators, really kind of makes what's going on now here. It looks very similar in some ways, where there's a lot of exchanges popping up and ATSs almost like these little exchanges. And one of the things that I realized was that we have like a clearing and settlement system called blockchain that's actually the most efficient clearing and settlement system in the world for the actual transfer of any type of asset. So we have to like set global, it'd be better for us as an industry to try to set some global standards, just some best practices that'll help the industry kind of move ahead. And Malta actually has done some good work because they really took a deep dive on the blockchain technology itself and understood that a digital asset can be multiple types of things. And as opposed to the regulators kind of knee-jerking a little bit and saying, oh, it's Bitcoin, it's a currency, it's this, it's that. You know, it's kind of a lot of different, there's a lot of different facets to it. So we thought that why don't we set up something like a kind of SRO, self-regulated, kind of organization, which is something that I know about. I mean, FINRA was actually created when they spun out the NASD, and this is all really U.S. stuff, but what it does is every exchange started off as a membership type of organization where people came together and said, we're going to have some rules as to how we trade. And the marketplaces function better when they're like that. The only problem is that we're global, all of us, right? Instantaneously, and there's laws that are different everywhere. And every 3 months, they're changing. So really, really complicated stuff. Good to put together an SRO membership, like a Paris Accord style, where we're all going to start to just kind of agree on maybe some basic guidelines, and then eventually grow that into something of a nonprofit organization that OKEx isn't going to own, we'll all own it. It's a decentralized approach, which is what we love, right? And by doing so, we can set some best practices and then watch what the jurisdictions do and create like templates almost where people can feel like, so every time a new government wants to now regulate when they want to go through that process, they'll have a centralized organization that they can turn to and say, okay, what are the best practices? And at least they can start somewhere. So I think the goal here is to try to move the whole kind of industry forward and more towards mass adoption, more towards letting the institutional funds in, pension funds and so on that potentially want to trade Bitcoin and other altcoins, and also define what the differences are.
Well, that sounds awesome. So like,
It's a lot though.
yeah, I mean, so like, was there something that triggered that? That you thought, you know what, we need to create some best practice standards here. Like, did you see some, certain things that you didn't like, that caused that to actually be pushed forward in OKEx?
Yeah, I mean, I saw basically that that there's a lot of different research houses kind of trying to come up and say, oh, this exchange is good, this one isn't, and then the rating systems. And I don't know if they're really skewed or not. It's kind of hard to tell. So I was like, why don't we just kind of create something that's really decentralized and doesn't have any agenda? Like, the agenda is for all of us to get to a certain place so that we can compete, but we don't need to compete on like propaganda or fake news? Why don't we just compete as a fair market? So that was really the goal.
Awesome. So obviously, I think this is so this is something that OKEx is at the forefront of pushing forward. So that you must have other exchanges that have buying into this, and well, not buying is the wrong word, but agreed to doing this with you. How do like other exchanges get on board? I'm sure that there's hundreds of exchanges right now. Like how do they kind of like join this association, or so to speak?
So one of the things that we're really trying to work on is how do we do this without owning it completely, right? Because we're not trying to make money off of it. In fact, when the membership starts, there will be no money change hands. We don't think we need to. We think it would be kind of against the rules in a way. So right now we're using basically our business development contacts. So you can contact me, or you can just go to kind of OKEx.com, go to the contact page, just contact us. The feedback has been extremely positive, even prior to actually doing this major announcement. We had spoken to a few exchanges, and they were like, "Yeah, it sounds great," because they know that it's going to help the industry move forward. If you position it the right way, and you don't try to like make it into some type of money maker or some nonsense, it actually works, right? So we're going to take it slowly and make sure that everybody gets to be a part of it versus us like being. It's not the OKEx club, okay? It's going to be like a decentralized, really a membership org. So everybody who we've spoken to has given us good feedback and is interested.
Awesome. So how's that going to work then, right? Like, so let's say other exchanges are joining, and obviously like things are going to come up, right, based on what happens in the future to exchanges and to your business. Like, are you going to like all have like an equal vote on how to do things? It's going to like the EU or something like that.
I think that we're going to try to work on what that format is, right? So we don't really know yet. I think the concept of having one vote per exchange might be a valuable idea, but as you know, in like a democracy type of approach, you have to be careful about, well, shouldn't the bigger exchanges get more power and blah blah blah, right? So we don't really know yet, and I think that's part of what we want to talk. That's why we want to invite anyone, right? It's just come in if you're like a market maker, or if you're just a kind of OTC desk, or you're doing an exchange, or whatever market participation you're doing. If you want to give some basic feedback and become part of the solution, why not?
Yeah, awesome. So just so we can like picture this in our minds, like what are some of the categories that we're gonna OKEx and the rest of the exchanges are going to be kind of like self-regulating themselves on?
So we could do things that are pretty simple, like one idea is that we could actually build. There's some tech ideas that I kind of threw out there yesterday. A smart type of compliance approach, or we can actually have like a data feed that's a centralized a tape almost. So in the U.S., there's this kind of tape. It's a consolidated tape. Basically, all the trades that are done on every exchange right to one tape at the end of the day, right? Well, they're doing that's a blockchain, right? I mean, that's basically a blockchain. So we can do stuff like that. But really, the guidelines is. How do we want to treat other market participants? Maybe set some ideas around maker-taker rules. Maybe try to do the things that normal exchanges do, that the current exchanges do, which creates an efficient marketplace. Things will become more liquid. And then how do we move the ball forward overall on the compliance side, or what are our recommendations for compliance? KYC, AML, like should we all be doing it? How do we deal with DEXs? Let's give our information as a collective, as opposed to everybody having their little pops of different information. Because if we can agree on it, it just becomes much more powerful.
Awesome. Well, wish you the best of luck with that. Obviously, it sounds like a really positive initiative. Anything where we can build bridges, not walls, I'm all for, right?
Right, exactly. Thank
you. Let's just pedal back a little bit, Enzo. So I've heard a little bit about your background last night, the gala dinner and everything else, which sounded quite impressive. So I know that you're relatively new to OKEx, or newish. So I was just wondering, really, firstly, what was it that drew you to OKEx in particular?
I have to say, I just think that they're a bunch of smart, they're just really smart folks that are actually they want to focus on being the most compliant, the most fair trading exchange out there, and they understand. I think the vision of, and they came up with this vision that if we move the whole business forward, if everyone moves ahead, it raises all boats, right? But it'll also allow us to deal with all of the multi-jurisdictional issues that are difficult right now, and that's their biggest step. That's their kind of thought leadership step. And then the other part of it is they're quite humble about it. They're not trying to dominate this or use it as a leverage point. They're just really focused on moving the business forward for everyone, so that we can all work together.
Awesome. So, given your background, it would be great to hear more about what you've done before you came to OKEx and kind of what your brief was, to bring OKEx forward. What are you here to actually achieve? What's your mission?
Well, I've been in the fin services industry for about 20 plus years, mostly on the financial technology side, and I did. NASDAQ is where I really first started doing the M&A work. I was in strategy and doing corporate development. I created a business there. I co-founded a business called NASDAQ Corporate Solutions, which by the time I left was in 2007 was about 50 million in top line revenue. I did acquisitions to get there, and then they took it to about 300, a little bit over 300. They sold a bit of the asset off just recently, but they've kept some of the more of the market intelligence side of the business. A lot of that strategy was based around NASDAQ competing for listings, and it was wrapping products and services because what had happened was the actual bubble burst, and then the Sarbanes-Oxley, these new laws came out about compliance because of Enron and all this stuff, and it made it really expensive all of a sudden to be a public company. So we decided to create products that help public companies be better public companies. The disclosure side, proxy issues, and then I left there and I rolled up a bunch of companies on the consulting part of the business. Proxy solicitors, investor relation firms, market intelligence companies. And the reason why we did that was a similar issue as what we're having now, where, if you're a global multinational, you would have shareholders all over the world. And you would have different laws in different jurisdictions that you had to deal with. Sounds very similar, right? And then you'd have to do stock transfer all over the world. So the goal was, if you needed to, if an Apple or maybe actually Petrobras, which is a large Brazilian oil company, they wanted to come to the States, they need to find their shareholders there. It's hard to find your shareholders in the States because there's all these laws. So our job was to roll up investor relation and proxy for these types of firms so that we could service these multinationals. That's because the back end of the system doesn't work efficiently, because you have all these different stocks trading in different versions and these things called GDRs and ADRs, which is very market geeky, and I'm not going to go into it. Blockchain solves all that, I'll be honest with you, which is pretty amazing. You could literally have one digital asset that could be a stock or whatever that could trade globally across multiple exchanges in under a 20-minute clearing. That's not heard of. It's impossible right now. And that would also lower the sales commission. I mean, it would lower the cost. Like if you're in Vietnam and you're and you want to buy a share of Facebook, or like Amazon, it costs you 20% on the sales commission side, and it takes like 3 days to clear, or 4 days to clear, or maybe even longer. Where you can, if you're in the U.S., you pay $4.95 for that trade. So I think blockchain can solve a lot of those problems. So that's like my background, and then in rolling up those firms, China, Brazil, Europe, the Nordics, and so on. I then ran actually equities.com, which was, I was trying to apply the same kind of methodology to microcap, which is also very similar to crypto. Microcap companies they're not liquid. They trade on markets that can't support them. There's no market makers. I mean, it's like, it literally is the same thing happening over again. And if we want to fix that, we're almost falling into some of the same traps. So my goal is to try to not to get us out of that concept and maybe adjust the way things are done. Don't know what the future holds, but the international strategy role for me is about expanding into Europe, and then of course the SRO and trying to see where the market goes, because this market changes literally every 3 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the most exciting things about working in this space is that if you like lay off the news for like a week or so, you've literally you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, so it's always moving, it's always evolving, and it's always on. And I think that keeps us kind of busy, right? So.
Yeah, no, it does.
You mentioned that you're moving into Europe. Obviously, I'm European, so it's interesting for me. Like, what kind of markets do you think are the most interesting European markets for OKEx to move into, and why?
Well, let's go back to the centers of finance, right? So on the fund side, the really institutional side, I would focus on London. I would focus on, Geneva, Zurich, right? Major centers, right? Because it's like New York, London, Geneva, and so on, and Zurich, and then Paris, right? And then I guess Rome more, and then going to East, right? So we would focus there on the institutional side, but on the retail side, we're seeing a lot of traffic actually from Russia and from actually kind of Eastern Europe, but the UK also, and the UK is still, to me, is still one of the centers of the for finance. It's one of the centers, and so. We want to focus on where we think, and then of course that's Germany, right? So Germany has a very good, strong. I mean, anywhere where there's equities traded in an active retail manner, I think there's a good place for crypto trading.
Have you had a look at Turkey?
Turkey. So I didn't mention it, but there's a whole kind of Middle East. So once you get past, you get out of Europe a little bit. Now you're starting going to the Middle East. So there's Dubai, Turkey, right? You keep on moving. There's an active group. I mean, there's a lot of active traders in Turkey. I don't know what the actual Turkish laws are, but currently we have customers trading from 120 different countries. I don't have the list off the top of my head, but.
Cool. Well, maybe not after 1 month, but maybe in a few months' time, I'm sure you'll already know all of it. Cool. So, what does the future hold for OKEx? What are we looking at in the next 12 to 24 months? What are you guys working on?
We are going to focus on trust, compliance, expansion. We have some products in the hopper. We do the swap product. We have the really good market on swaps, spot trading, C2C trading. So we expect some more of those kind of financial products to come to bear. I think the focus on being as compliant as possible in all of the different places of the world, and hopefully get this SRO off the ground, and really just keep on moving along. I think everybody wants to get to this. We want to break out of that 1%, right? It's growing really well, but we need a couple of key movements, I think, in the world in order for it to get a little bit more mainstream adoption. Awesome.
Well, Enzo, thank you so much for joining me today. Do you have any last thoughts or comments you want to tell the OKEx community?
No, I mean, thank you for everything, right? I like your jacket. Yeah. We have matching jackets. No, I would say just go visit OKEx.com for more information. And if you are definitely interested in becoming one of the members, contact us through the site, and we'd be happy to speak to you. Thanks.
Enzo, thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
That's the OKTV. Don't forget to like, subscribe below, and we'll see you again next time.